Welcome to the Urban Herald. We're the team that brings you deep analysis on stories that, well, really demand a second look, stories needing historical correction.
And today we're tackling a huge one, a truly staggering oversight in American music history.
Yeah, it's an epic injustice, really. We're talking about the forgotten architect of rock and roll.
A figure whose absence, frankly, from the standard history books for so many decades is, well, it's almost criminal.
And the central question we're digging into today is, it's simple, but it's kind of devastating. Why did history seem to systematically try to forget Sister Rosetta Tharpe?
Exactly, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Born Rosetta Nubin, 1915, Cotton Plant, Arkansas.
A black woman, yes, a deeply powerful gospel singer, but also, and this is the absolute key, a virtuoso electric guitarist.
And we're not talking about some minor influence here, are we?
No, not at all. Not a footnote. We're talking about the undeniable godmother of rock and roll.
She didn't just, come before the genre. She actually put together its core ingredients. We're talking aggressive, electrified guitar solos in the late 1930s, early 1940s.
Years before Chuck Berry's Duck Walk, before Muddy Waters really plugged in for the masses, certainly before Elvis Presley ever set foot in Sun Studio.
Yet, after she passed away in 1973, her name just vanished from the mainstream rock story.
And the most painful symbol of this, the thing that just hits you, her grave. It stayed unmarked outside Philadelphia for more than 30 years.
Unbelievable. It really sets the stage.
It does. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We want you to understand the sheer scope of what she created, but also dig into the reasons, the structural reasons why she was sidelined.
And also celebrate this moment right now, 2025, where it feels like she's finally truly reclaiming her place right at the center of the story.
Okay, so let's start right there with the present. Why now? Why is 2025 feeling like the year everyone's suddenly talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe again?
Well, our sources are definitely showing this unprecedented cultural comeback for her. It's like she's moved from, academic papers and deep music fan circles right onto the main stage.
And the biggest spark, the thing that really threw her back into the spotlight, has to be the Lizzo biopic news, right?
Absolutely. That announcement from Amazon MGM Studios back in March 2025, Rosetta, starring Lizzo, that made huge waves globally.
And the way they're framing that film, it seems really important for why she connects now. They said it focuses on how she defied expectations and forged her own path, both in her music and in her personal life.
Yeah, and that narrative authenticity, identity, defiance, it speaks directly to things we're talking about now. Representation, pushing back against norms.
The casting of Lizzo feels so deliberate, too. There are parallels, aren't there?
Oh, totally. Think about it. Lizzo, a black woman navigating the modern music world, facing all kinds of scrutiny, discrimination, body shaming, challenging what people expect from a female performer.
And here she is playing an artist, Tharpe, who faced, you could argue, even a harsher cultural resistance 7 decades earlier. For being loud, for being aggressive on guitar, maybe for being queer, for mixing sacred and secular.
Right, all of it. So Lizzo brings this lived understanding, this emotional weight to it. It guarantees the story gets told with complexity, and it reaches this massive, diverse audience that Lizzo commands.
It's amazing timing, too, because it's not just the one film. There's this convergence happening, stage, screen. It's like multiple spotlights turning on her at once.
Exactly. The theater world is definitely buzzing, too. There's that play, Marie and Rosetta, by George Brandt.
Which digs into her relationship with Marie Knight, that intense musical partnership, but also the rumored romantic relationship.
Yes, and that's a key layer history often tried to ignore or smooth over. And that play, starring the UK soul legend Beverly Knight, is heading to London's West End at Soho Place in early 2026. That's high profile.
So it's tackling the complexity of her personal life head on.
Then there's the musical Shout, Sister, Shout, which is based on Gail Wald's biography, the really definitive book on Tharpe.
Right, that one's been building steam for a while, hasn't it? Playing regional theaters, Pasadena, Seattle, Ford's Theater in D.C.
Yeah, written by Cheryl West. It shows there's been this steady sort of academic and theatrical push to tell her story, even before the big Hollywood announcements.
And then, as if that wasn't enough, May 2025 rolls around, and Live Nation Productions announces another Tharpe biopic.
A second one, penned by Anjano Ellis Taylor and produced by, wait for it, Mick Jagger.
Wow. Okay, Mick Jagger's involvement, that's a statement, isn't it? From the rock establishment itself.
It absolutely is. Jagger and the Stones, they've always, acknowledged their debt to Black American blues artists. Him putting his name and resources behind this, it feels like the rock hierarchy actively saying, okay, We need to fix the record here.
So you put it all together, 2 biopics, major stage shows, all focused on this woman who was essentially erased.
It tells you something about right now, doesn't it? This isn't just music history buffs talking anymore.
It feels like part of that bigger cultural conversation
Yeah.
about representation, who gets credit,
Right.
cultural appropriation,
Yeah.
and especially about the erasure of Black women's foundational roles in American music.
And Sister Rosetta Tharpe is kind of the perfect, powerful symbol for that whole necessary correction that's happening in 2025.
Okay, to really get why she was such a revolutionary figure, we have to go back to the beginning. Cotton Plant, Arkansas. Born Rosetta Newman, March 20th, 1915.
And her sound, her whole unique approach, it was fundamentally shaped in the church, specifically the Church of God in Christ, or Higuk.
We should think of Kukidi as more than just her church, right? It was like her first music school, her conservatory.
Absolutely. Her mother, Katie Bell Newman, wasn't just an evangelist. She was a respected mandolin player within Kuk. And what made Kukit so crucial for Rosetta's development was how progressive it was for its time.
In what way?
Well, unlike a lot of other denominations back then, Kukujik actively encouraged women to preach, to teach, and critically to perform music.
That's a huge difference. So in an era where women's roles in public church life were often really restricted, Kiduka gave her the platform, the permission even, to develop as a performer and instrumentalist right from childhood.
And the worship style itself fed directly into her music. Siujik's services were known for being exuberant, filled with this spiritual urgency, but also real physical joy.
You mean like hand clapping, dancing?
Oh, yeah. Vigorous musical expression, spontaneous movement. The music wasn't just accompaniment. It was rhythmic. It was visceral. It was seen as a direct line to spiritual ecstasy.
And that intensity, that kind of kinetic energy, you can hear it later in everything she did.
It became the emotional engine, really. And get this, by age 6, this is 1921, she was already a featured performer with her mother's traveling group.
Billed as the singing and guitar playing miracle. 6 years old, can you picture that? A little girl in these rural revival tents playing guitar skillfully, commanding audiences.
And that whole period, the 1920s, the 30s, touring the tent revival circuit, that was her education. She was soaking it all up.
Like what, Delta Blues?
Delta blues, absolutely. The harmonies of Jubilee spirituals, but also the newer sounds emerging from the cities. And importantly, she learned how to work a crowd, how to hold an audience in really tough conditions sometimes. Rain, small spaces, you name it.
She built incredible stage presence.
Definitely. Then comes the move to the big city. She marries Thomas Thorpe and adapts his surname to Tharpe, which she keeps and moves to New York City in 1934.
The absolute center of American music at the time.
Yeah.
The recording industry, the big bands.
Right. So the rural gospel prodigy meets urban swing, and that fusion just explodes on one specific date, October 31st, 1938.
Halloween 1938, she's only 23.
Goes into the Decca Records studio, records 4 songs, and these tracks basically change the game. They make her the first gospel artist to really, truly cross over commercially.
And the one that really shook things up was Rock Me.
Rock Me was a shockwave. Musically, culturally, you've got her voice, raw, bluesy, gospel-inflected, but it's backed by Lucky Millender's polished big band.
But the defining moment, the thing that points straight to rock and roll,
Is that opening? A stunning, confident electric guitar solo. It just cuts right through.
the genius was the blend, right? The lyrics are sacred. Rock me, Lord, rock me in the cradle of thy love.
Pure gospel imagery. But the delivery. High energy, worldly, you could dance to it. She introduced this idea that rocking could mean both things at once, spiritual rapture and physical rhythmic movement.
That's it right there. The DNA church meets the juke joint.
And people got it immediately. Critics knew something new was happening. In 1942, a critic named Maury Oradenker actually used the phrase rock and roll spiritual singing just to describe her music.
Wow, 42. Years before rock and roll was a genre label.
Exactly. It shows the concept was already there in her sound. And this crossover was happening during segregation, remember? Her records were hits on the race records charts, sure, but they also caught the ear of young white audiences looking for something more exciting than mainstream pop.
And that breakout year culminates with a really prestigious appearance.
Carnegie Hall, December 23rd, 1938. John Hammond's legendary From Spirituals to Swing concert.
That concert was a big deal, culturally and politically.
Huge. Hammond wanted to showcase the entire spectrum of Black American musical achievement. Blues legends, jazz greats, big bands to this elite, mostly white New York audience in the most respected venue.
And right in the middle of all these established figures.
Stands 23-year-old sister Rosetta Tharpe, A black woman with an electric guitar, literally embodying the bridge between the sacred and the secular, the rural and the urban. Her being there helped legitimize these powerful black musical forms as serious American art on a national stage.
Okay, her voice made her famous, no doubt.
Yeah.
But her legacy, the reason we call her the Godmother, the first guitar heroine, as the Rock Hall put it, that rests firmly on her guitar playing.
Yes. She wasn't just playing the guitar, she was fundamentally shaping the sound of rock guitar as we know it.
We need to get into the specifics here because this is where she was so far ahead of her time. She was one of the very first popular artists, definitely the first major black female artist to intentionally use heavy distortion and amplification on her electric guitar.
Right. Think about the late 30s, early 40s. Most people saw the electric guitar as just a louder acoustic guitar. They wanted clarity, a clean tone, just amplified.
But Tharpe did something different. She had this, conceptual insight.
She realized that if she pushed her tube amplifiers past their limits, past what's called their clean headroom, the sound itself would change. It would break up, get gritty.
For anyone listening who doesn't play guitar, can you explain clean headroom quickly?
Sure. Basically, it's how loud you can turn up an amplifier before the tubes or circuits start to overload and distort the signal. Early amps didn't have much headroom. They were pretty low-powered.
So when Tharpe cranked the volume up to compete with a big band, or later to fill bigger venues.
Those small tube amps naturally started to distort. They produced that fuzzy, slightly aggressive, overdriven sound. We call it distortion or crunch now.
And crucially, she didn't hear that as a mistake or a technical flaw.
No, she embraced it. She used it. That distortion became a musical tool for her, giving her sound this incredible edge, this power, and importantly, volume.
The volume was legendary, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Chris Barber, the British jazz band leader she toured with in 1957, he recalled she was twice as loud as Muddy Waters, 3 times as loud as that, really.
Wow. That loud, that early.
That kind of aggressive, loud, deliberately distorted sound, it was intentional. And sonically, it puts her much closer to, say, the British blues rock bands of the mid-60s than it does to most of her contemporaries in the 40s and 50s.
You can kind of track her sonic evolution through the guitars she chose, too.
Definitely. Early on, she used National Resonator guitars. Those have metal bodies designed to be loud acoustically, very common in Delta blues. Gives you that sharp, cutting tone.
Then by the early 40s, she's playing a Gibson L5, which is a beautiful, sophisticated archtop jazz guitar.
But, and this is key, she had a pickup installed on it. She electrified it. So she's taking this smooth jazz instrument and injecting it with bluesy fire and volume. It shows that hybrid thinking.
But the image everyone remembers, the one that just screams rock and roll.
Has to be that white 1962 Gibson Les Paul SG Custom.
Yeah, that guitar looks dangerous even today. The double cutaway, the devil horns.
It is a rock machine. 3 powerful humbucking pickups designed for high output. A maestro vibrato arm for effects. It was built for volume, sustain, and attitude. Seeing her wield that in the 1964 footage, she looks completely contemporary, like she could step on stage with any 60s rock band. That guitar became part of her visual identity.
Her actual playing technique was unique too, wasn't it? She used an unusual tuning.
Mostly, yeah. She almost exclusively played in vestibule tuning, which is basically an open E chord, though she often tuned it down lower.
And what does that tuning let you do?
Well, playing in an open tuning means you can play full chords just by barring one finger across the strings or use a slide very effectively. It gives the guitar this richer, more resonant sound, great for accompanying her voice.
But she wasn't just strumming chords.
No way. She used really clever chromatic runs, double stops, playing 2 notes at once, and she had this very fluid melodic style using dynamic slides and hammer-ons directly on the fretboard. It's a slightly different feel than the string bending that became super popular later in 60s rock, but just as expressive and energetic.
Okay, so all this innovation, the distortion, the volume, the technique, the attitude, it all leads to this massive claim. Her 1944 recording, Strange Things Happening Every Day. Many say it's arguably the first rock and roll record.
The story behind that track is amazing. It was basically her response to criticism.
Criticism from who?
From conservative black religious leaders who were really upset that she was playing gospel music in secular nightclubs, mixing the sacred and the profane.
So instead of backing down,
She doubled down, went into the studio, and cut Strange Things. The lyrics are absolutely gospel, talking about signs of the times, biblical prophecy. But the sound, it's pure jump blues, leaning heavily towards what would become rock and roll.
what makes it sound like rock?
Okay, you've got her electric guitar front and center, her vocals, and then a stripped-down band. Piano, bass, drums. That's the classic rock lineup, right? A decade early. But even more importantly, the feel. It's built on a driving groove, a catchy riff, and that unmistakable backbeat, the strong emphasis on beats 2 and 4. That's the rhythmic pulse of rock music.
And it connected commercially, didn't it?
Big time. It became the first gospel record to cross over onto the secular race records chart, hitting #2 in April 1945. It wasn't just influential, it was a hit. It proved the formula worked.
There's that great NPR quote about it.
Yeah, rock and roll was bred between the church and the nightclubs in the soul of a queer black woman in the 1940s named Sister Rosetta Tharpe. It just nails it.
And even the Library of Congress recognized another 1944 track, her version of Down by the Riverside, specifically calling out her spirited guitar playing and unique vocal style.
Right. She wasn't just preserving old songs. She was making a powerful statement that spiritual music could be modern, exciting, electric, and make you want to move. That's the revolution.
So her whole career was basically lived on this cultural fault line, wasn't it? This constant tension between the sacred world she came from and the secular world she played in.
Absolutely. Performing gospel songs in smoky nightclubs, playing secular-sounding music with religious lyrics. It meant she was always stirring things up, always courting controversy.
You mentioned her playing with Lucky Millender's swing band in the early 40s, singing songs like I Want a Tall Skinny Papa.
Yeah, definitely not a hymn. But then she'd turn around and perform deeply spiritual songs at places like Harlem's Cotton Club or the Savoy Ballroom.
Venues known for drinking, dancing, elaborate floor shows, sometimes with scantily clad dancers.
Exactly. And for many in the established gospel community, that was just unacceptable. It felt like a betrayal, like she was commercializing sacred music, making it worldly.
Playing at a place like the Cotton Club, which catered to white audiences seeking a certain kind of black entertainment, must have been particularly problematic for some black church leaders.
Deeply problematic. It clashed with the values of respectability and tradition that were very important in many black churches at the time. She got shunned by significant parts of the gospel world for it.
But you could argue that friction was actually essential to her creativity, right?
I think so. Because she refused to just choose one world, she had to invent something new. She had to create a style, this pop gospel hybrid that felt spiritually genuine enough for church folks, but was also exciting and accessible enough for the nightclub crowd.
That tension basically forced innovation. It created the blueprint for pretty much every soul and rock artist who later wrestled with that same sacred-secular divide, like Sam Cooke or Aretha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if her music walked a tightrope, her sense of showmanship, her flair for spectacle just blew right past it. The peak example has to be her third wedding in 1951.
Okay, this wasn't just any wedding. This was the Griffith Stadium wedding in Washington, D.C.
Yes, Griffith Stadium, where the Washington Senators baseball team played. This was pure spectacle, designed partly to reignite her career, which had maybe dipped a bit.
And it was billed as, what was it?
The most elaborate wedding ever staged, plus the world's greatest spiritual concert. I mean, the sheer audacity.
How many people actually went?
Estimates range from 20,000 to maybe 25,000 people. They got tickets anywhere from 90 cents to $2.50.
To watch her get married on a baseball field.
Pretty much. She and the wedding party walked down this satin carpet laid out from the team dugout to an altar set up right there at second base.
Incredible. You just can't imagine many artists, especially a solo female artist, pulling that off in 1951.
And adding another layer to the whole thing, her maid of honor, it was Marie Knight, her long-term musical partner, the woman she was rumored to be romantically involved with, standing right there beside her at this huge public ceremony.
Wow. And then after the wedding, there was a concert.
Yeah, a full concert followed. And this is really significant. Functionally, that concert was an incredibly early example of stadium rock.
You mean like playing rock music in a huge sports arena?
Exactly. This was 1951. 14 years before the Beatles played Shea Stadium in 1965, the event usually credited with kicking off the stadium rock era.
So Tharpe was doing it way earlier, proving that a solo performer, a black woman rooted in gospel, could command that kind of a massive, impersonal venue.
It definitely generated huge headlines, front page news across the country. It cemented her stardom in a way.
But did it also kind of backfire?
In some ways, yeah. It created this sensationalist narrative around her. People focused on the spectacle, the outrageousness, the controversy, and maybe less on her actual musical genius, her technical skill. It might have contributed, sadly, to her artistry being taken less seriously later on, making her easier to sideline.
when you really want to grasp how foundational she was, you just need to look at who she influenced. It's basically a who's who of first-generation rock and roll.
The family tree absolutely starts with her branch. It's undeniable.
Let's name some names. Chuck Berry, often called the architect of rock and roll guitar.
Admitted his words, his entire career was one long Sister Rosetta Tharpe impression.
He didn't just say he liked her. He said he copied her.
Exactly. He took her mix of blues licks and that driving swing rhythm, even aspects of her guitar showmanship. You watch Tharpe move with the guitar, the attitude. Barry adapted that energy for the new teenage audience.
Okay, who else? Little Richard.
Little Richard met her when he was just a kid, working selling concessions at a shop in Macon, Georgia, back in '47. She heard him sing backstage, was impressed, and actually paid him. It was his first professional payment for performing.
Wow, that's a great story. But the influence was deeper than just giving him a break, right?
Oh, much deeper. Richard absolutely soaked up her wild stage energy, that blend of Pentecostal fervor and pure theatricality. He took that gospel shouting style, filtered through Tharpe's pop gospel sensibility, and basically turned it into rock and roll dynamite.
And the king himself, Elvis Presley.
Gordon Stoker from Elvis's backing vocal group, the Jordanaires, confirmed Elvis had great admiration for both her singing and her guitar playing.
And that early Sun record sound, Elvis had that mix of gospel, blues, country.
It's the exact hybrid tradition Tharpe had pioneered nearly 2 decades earlier. He was walking down a path she'd already paved.
Even Johnny Cash, coming from a similar Arkansas background.
Called Tharpe his favorite singer growing up. Cash's own music, that seamless blend of gospel, country, and blues, it directly mirrors what Tharpe was doing. She showed those sounds belonged together.
And maybe the most mind-blowing connection for guitar fans, Jimi Hendrix.
Right. The ultimate guitar god, famous for volume, feedback, distortion. He reportedly said he wanted to play just like her.
Specifically trying to get that distorted sound she had back in the 40s.
Apparently so. Hendrix is lauded for pushing the electric guitar to its limits, but he was chasing a sound, an aggressive, distorted tone that Tharpe had already discovered and mastered decades before.
It wasn't just the guitarist either. Major vocalists, too.
Absolutely. Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner, both have explicitly named Sister Rosetta as a crucial early influence on how they approach singing, that powerful mix of gospel soul and secular energy.
And here's a really surprising one. Karen Carpenter.
Yeah.
From the Carpenters.
Yeah, it sounds unlikely, right? Soft rock royalty. But apparently her drumming, which was actually quite intricate and driving, incorporated a specific rhythmic feel that she picked up from Tharpe's records, sometimes called the Trolton Chug.
That's amazing. A 1940s gospel rhythm influencing 70s pop drumming. Shows how deep the roots go.
And we absolutely have to talk about her impact across the Atlantic, the British connection.
She toured Britain early on, didn't she? With Chris Barber's jazz band in 1957.
Yes, crucially, a full year before Muddy Waters made his famously influential electric tour of the UK. So British audiences heard Tharpe's loud, aggressive electric guitar first.
And they were shocked, apparently.
Completely stunned. Barber himself said her playing was way closer to the thunderous blues rock that would explode out of the UK in the mid to late 60s than anything else they'd heard. She gave those young British musicians an early taste of what was possible.
Which leads us to that legendary moment in Manchester, 1964.
The performance at the abandoned railway station, Wilbraham Road Station, for Granada TV's Blues and Gospel Train special. It was part of the American Folk Blues and Gospel Caravan Tour. And it was pouring rain.
What an image. Dressed in that amazing white coat, holding that white Gibson SG.
And because of the rain, she spontaneously changed the song, looked up at the downpour, and launched into Didn't It Rain?
That footage is iconic. It's maybe the single most powerful visual evidence of her impact.
Totally. It captures everything, her charisma, her vocal power, her effortless command of that rock guitar. And the story goes that future British rock royalty, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, Jimmy Page, either saw that broadcast or caught her on that tour.
And it blew their minds. Seeing this Black American woman absolutely owning this loud, bluesy, electric sound that they were just starting to explore.
It had to be formative. And even today, contemporary artists like Celise, who played lead guitar for Beyoncé, or Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes, they consistently point back to Tharpe as foundational.
When you list it all out like that, the sheer number of legends she influenced, her erasure from the standard history seems even more baffling.
So we have to confront it directly. Why? Why was the Godmother, the originator, the influence on practically everyone, buried in an unmarked grave and ignored for decades?
The answer seems to lie in the biases baked into how that history was written in the first place.
Yeah, it was a brutal combination of factors, primarily that double burden, race and gender.
The official story of rock and roll, the one that got told in magazines and books, was largely written by white men, right?
Overwhelmingly. And that narrative consistently downplayed or outright ignored the contributions of black artists, especially black women.
There's a quote from scholar Maureen Mahan about how after the British invasion really took off in '64.
The whitening of rock really starts to happen at an accelerated pace.
Yeah, once white artists found mass success playing styles pioneered by black artists, the historical spotlight quickly shifted to the inheritors, conveniently forgetting the originators.
And gender was a huge barrier for Tharpe specifically. Massive. Back in the 30s and 40s, being a virtuosic instrumentalist, particularly on something seen as aggressive like an amplified guitar, was just assumed to be a masculine trait.
That's where you get those backhanded compliments, like critics saying she could play like a man.
Exactly. That phrase itself shows the sexism. The underlying assumption was that real skill, real power on the instrument was inherently male. A woman playing like that was an anomaly, not a pioneer.
And the rock culture that emerged in the 50s and 60s, it was very male-dominated, very focused on masculine energy.
Yeah, figures like Elvis, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis. It just wasn't structured to easily celebrate or even acknowledge a powerful, assertive, black, female guitar pioneer like Tharpe.
Then there was the problem of where to even categorize her music.
The gospel category problem, yeah. She didn't fit neatly into the boxes music historians and the industry like to use.
Too religious for the secular pop world, but too worldly, too electric, too bluesy for the mainstream gospel establishment.
She was stuck in this kind of cultural no man's land. Gospel music itself was often treated as just a precursor to rock, like raw material that others refined, not as an equal partner in its creation.
And Tharpe's music was the fusion. It defied easy categorization. She insisted on being both spiritual and commercial, sacred and secular, all at once.
Which made her difficult for historians looking for clean, linear narratives. Hybrids are often harder to place.
And we have to touch on the element of sexuality and respectability politics.
It's unavoidable. While she was married to men, staging that huge public wedding even, the reports and rumors of her romantic relationships with women, particularly with Marie,
through the mid-20th century, and especially within the church communities that formed part of her base.
would have been incredibly damaging professionally if widely confirmed. Even the rumors likely made her seem less respectable, less like a straightforward hero figure that historians, especially back then, might have preferred to celebrate. Conformity was valued.
It adds another layer to why that recent internet meme, "a queer black woman invented rock and roll," feels so potent.
It absolutely does. It's a political act, reclaiming all parts of her identity and insisting that her complexity is central to the story, not something to be hidden or smoothed over. It challenges that old sanitized version of history.
And the most stark physical evidence of all this erasure, her death in 1973.
Dying with her career having faded significantly, and then being buried in an unmarked grave outside Philadelphia for over 30 years.
An unmarked grave. For the woman who arguably laid the cornerstone for rock and roll, is just chilling.
It speaks volumes about how completely the music industry, the cultural memory keepers, had let her slip away.
It wasn't until a fan, Bob Murs, took action after reading Gail Wald's biography.
Right. He organized a benefit concert in 2008 specifically to raise money for a proper headstone. The fact that her physical memorial depended on grassroots fan effort, not institutional recognition, is a really painful indictment of how badly she was failed.
So the recognition, when it finally started to come formally, was incredibly delayed.
Painfully delayed. Think about it. The people she directly mentored or influenced, Little Richard, Elvis, Chuck Berry, they were all inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the very first class, 1986.
But Tharpe, their primary source, their stylistic godmother,
had to wait until 2018, 45 years after her death.
She was inducted posthumously in the early influence category.
Which, okay, technically she was an early influence, obviously. But given her direct role in creating the sound, many feel strongly she belongs recognized as a main performer inductee. Her impact wasn't just early, it was fundamental.
The fact that the Hall waited until 2018 It really highlights those long-standing biases in how rock history was officially sanctioned.
It does. But the 2018 induction ceremony itself felt important. Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes gave this incredibly powerful tribute performance.
Right, it felt like a moment of acknowledging the injustice, even while celebrating the long overdue honor. A moment of correction.
And her resurgence now, in 2025, it's kind of a testament to how history can be corrected, isn't it?
Yeah, through the work of dedicated scholars like Gail Wall digging up the facts, through artists with massive platforms like Lizzo and Mick Jagger championing her story.
And also through the power of the internet. Fans finding that 1964 Manchester clip on YouTube, sharing her music, demanding her story be told. It's democratized the process of remembering.
So for you, listening now, maybe hearing about Sister Rosetta Tharpe in depth for the first time, where should you start? What are the essential tracks?
Right? Gateway tracks. You absolutely have to start with Rock Me from 1938. Hear that revolutionary blend, that shocking guitar solo right at the beginning.
Then jump forward to 1944, Strange Things Happening Every Day.
Right.
Listen specifically for that driving rhythm, that heavy backbeat. Feel the rock and roll DNA in it.
Definitely. Then check out something like her 1947 duet with Marie Knight, Up Above My Head, I Hear Music in the Air. You really hear their vocal chemistry, and her guitar playing is just so sophisticated by then.
And you absolutely have to see her perform.
Yes. Find that 1964 Manchester footage of Didn't It Rain? Watch her command that stage in the pouring rain with that white SG. It's essential viewing. It tells you everything about her power and presence. The lineage of guitar heroes starts there.
So the takeaway really is, Sister Rosetta Tharpe didn't just influence rock and roll. She invented core pieces of it.
She was the first to prove that you could combine that powerful electric guitar distortion, that driving backbeat rhythm, and that intense fusion of sacred passion and secular energy, and create something that would change global culture.
And the fact that projects like the Lizzo biopic, the stage shows are happening now, it feels like they're finally cementing her story where it belongs. Not as a footnote, but as the actual foundation.
The fact that history initially failed her, that tells us so much about the biases, the racism, the sexism, the discomfort with her hybridity, maybe her sexuality, that shaped those early accounts of rock history.
It says more about the storytellers than about her talent, which was undeniable.
Exactly. We're finally getting the story right. So the question isn't anymore, does Sister Rosetta Tharpe belong in the conversation about rock's origins?
Right. The real question, looking at the full picture of her innovation and influence, has to be, how on earth did we ever have that conversation without her for so long?